Low. Here's the next thing you're going to learn. Ooh, no JavaScript. There's no JavaScript there. It's all HTML and CSS. Isn't that nice? It's a bit of a hack. So I have an input type that is not inside a form. Can we do that? MDN input. Input. Let's look at the specification. Permitted content, none. It's an empty element. Permitted parents, any element that accepts phrasing content. Any element that accepts phrasing content. What's phrasing content? Phrasing content, elements belonging to this category, a few other elements belong to this category. So any element that accepts phrasing content. And we could go up here and look at phrasing content. Phrasing content is this circle right there. And let's see if body tag accepts phrasing content. Body. Permitted content is flow content. And flow content is all this, which includes phrasing content. So this accepts phrasing content. And for input, any element that accepts phrasing content. So body accepts phrasing content. So we could use input outside of a form, technically speaking. It's interesting. Doesn't say you can't do that. So we put an input right here, and we say type is checkbox, and the ID is show menu. And then we have a label associated with that input. So we haven't looked at forms yet. And with a form, we have a form. There's going to be action, which is where when the form is submitted, we want the data sent. So if you don't specify action, it gets sent to the same page from which it's being served. There's method, which is post or get. If it's post, it means it's sent as payload in the body. If it's get, all the variables get encoded to the URL and sent as URL parameters. So you always need a method on your form. And then you have inputs, big part. There's different types of inputs. There's text, date time local, email file, hidden, image, month, number, password, radio, range, reset, search, tell time, week, URL, submit, button, checkbox, color. All kinds of different inputs we could have on a form. What kind of input do you want to get from the user? It's an input, and you say what kind it is. There's a whole bunch of them. We're going to go with checkbox just for this little example. So we have input type checkbox. It's giving me an error. Why? Input without an associated label or title attribute is not valid. So if I wanted to, I could do title, I guess, and yes. And if we look at this, there's my checkbox. Yes? Little tooltip is the title. See that tooltip? If I wanted to, I could do yes in front of it. Okay. But title's one way I could do it. Another way I could do it would be a label. So if I use a label, I have to give it an ID. So I could say F check Y, whatever. That's not quite the word I was going for. F check, yes. That's not looking right either. I didn't intend that. I meant like form checkbox. I'm just going to call it F. I'm going to call it S1. And then label. And label for S1. Yes. Yes. All right, that's the label. That's the right way to do it. So that's, using a checkbox. So down here, we have an input and a checkbox, right? And those two are connected by that, by show menu. And there's just menu around the label. You could also have it like this. Maybe it's more clear that way. And then we have this div ID sidebar. Well, let's look at the CSS. A little bit of a reset. The label is we're styling this to make this button, right? So we're saying position fixed, take it out of the document flow. Top and left, bring it off the top left corner by 1 rem. Z-index, we haven't talked about Z-index. So if we had many things that were position fixed, Z is your vertical axes. You have your x-axes, your y-axes. Z is going vertical off your screen towards you. So the higher the number, the higher the stacking order. So you can set Z-index on stuff. Arrange content. So I'm arranging the text into the center. I'm putting menu in the center with display flex, justify content center, align item center. Right? The content of the label is the text. Then I'm just formatting width, height, border, border radius, background color, color. And then a hover. And then here comes the cool stuff. Input type, input, so an input. And I'm choosing an input with an attribute type equal checkbox. Type equal checkbox. So I'm choosing any input that has this attribute. Okay? It's an attribute selector. And display none. So I'm not showing this checkbox. So that checkbox is not being displayed. And then down here, my sidebar, which is all this. Oops. Let me look at this first. So then we have input type equal checkbox checked. So when the checkbox is checked, I want you to select all following siblings that have the ID sidebar. I guess it doesn't make sense to have it down here. And I want you to make left 0 on that. Because right now, sidebar, position fixed, left -50 off screen. So when that checkbox gets checked, bring it over. And when you bring it over, transition, ease it in 1 second. Whoa! Isn't that nice? So right here, because I could click yes and it checks the form. So I could just click the label. I don't need that checkbox there. The label clicks it. Okay? So right here, the label is making that checkbox checked and not checked. Even though that checkbox is set to display none, I don't want to see that checkbox. right? And then when we have input type checkboxes checked, then select any sibling that has that follows, and this is following, that has the ID sidebar, and just change it from being off screen to on screen. Pull the whole thing on screen and give it a little transition in. This is the part that you have to wrap your head around. And I think this would even work because we only need +1. Because it's just the immediate one, right? So, same thing.
Would it be possible to use multiple checkboxes like that, where only one could be checked at a time to pull up different menus? Like, could you make a checkbox situation where you can only check one, and then you could click another, and it would, you, based on which one is checked, like the input type, you would affect different sidebars.
So that's what radio buttons do. You can only check one radio button in a group.
Oh.
So you might try building that with radio buttons. I've never tried it. There he goes. He's going off to build it. So why don't you get this working? And you try building it with radio buttons.